Welcome back, everyone. This is Elevated Duty Podcast. This is another podcast. It's been a while.
We've had a short break. You've been very busy, Officer
Yes.
Cannon Rivera.
Mhm.
I've been very busy. The Colorado National Guard in general has been very busy, which is a good thing. We'd rather be busy than not busy.
Yes.
But we're both happy to be back here with an amazing guest today. We have a lot to cover. You just got back from some leave.
Yes.
We're getting closer to
Much needed leave. Yes.
Yeah, back home, Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Brought me gifts. I owe you. Cigars. We don't condone the use of tobacco or products, but we're both adults, and thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Did you have fun?
Yes, a lot
Good.
of fun. I got to, relief from coming from phase one in July. So it was a trip that me and my wife, we had planned for a couple of months. And, we went there, visit family,
Yeah.
went to a concert. So, yeah, we had fun.
And wife is currently getting ready, transition out of active duty, correct?
Yeah, she already did.
And is now getting in process back in Puerto Rico for the reserves.
Yes, she successfully did, and she started training in October. So, yeah, we tried to get her into the guard and the corps, but then there's some specific MOSs like hers. It's so rare that we don't have it.
Yep.
And then some more leadership try to work out around what we can find her, and she's
Trying to
like,
make a deal.
yeah. And at the end, we mentioned on all the other podcasts. At the end, is your decision. If you don't like or you think there's another option, we're not gonna push.
No.
Is at the end is your decision. So if you want to join as an officer, you want to join as an enlisted, or you want to join on a specific MOS, that is your decision. Talking about that, if you want to join as a warrant officer,
Yes.
that's your decision too.
Yeah.
And today, we have a warrant officer on the table. Welcome, Chief Cragg.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good, you?
Good. How you feeling being on the Elevated Duty podcast?
Sure, let's go.
Thank you so much for coming on, Chief. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So with all of the the podcast and bringing on guests such as yourself, open us up and tell the viewers and listeners your story. Start wherever you'd like, from early childhood, from growing up. Where did you grow up, and kind of what got you into this uniform today, as much or as little as you want.
Sure. Yeah, we'll start with I grew up in Minnesota, suburb of the big cities, St. Paul and Minneapolis, so I was in a suburb. Very sheltered life. It was one of those places in the Midwest where you can leave your doors unlocked, super safe neighborhoods. But at the same time, the big city still had some crime. So you were familiar that there was some other stuff out there.
Sure.
So I think in high school, I was just kind of like, I'm looking for a little bit of adventure. Like, it was a little too quiet for me. I told my parents that I was doing it for the college money. I wasn't actually.
Okay.
I just wanted to get out and kind of see the world and explore.
Kind of giving that white lie to the parents. Do you come from a military background? Did
No.
parents serve, grandparents, extended family? Are you the first one in your family?
I am the first
to serve. And so you were telling them, hey, I'm going to do this for college.
Mm-hmm.
Did you end up dipping your toe or going to college?
No. So I'll give a little bit more background.
Yeah.
I think my grandparents, especially my grandpa, was more on the science side during World War II.
Okay.
So that was his participation, was more on the civilian science side, and then engineering, things like that. And on my parents' side, they were both working at a college. So again, college academics was very prominent in my family growing up. And I just didn't really enjoy sitting in a classroom. I was more physical, hands-on. I wanted to do things in person. I wanted to do skill sets.
Sure.
Didn't necessarily want to sit in a classroom all day. So I was not terribly interested in college. I did EMT my last year of high school.
Okay.
So I got into Fire Explorers. I don't know if you're familiar with the Explorer program.
I've heard of police explorers, but I have not
both.
heard of fire. So yeah, I didn't know there was one for both. So you did police explorer. You had a calling to service, is what I'm getting, right? You wanted to give back to the community. You wanted to respond in some way or another. And so you're in college, you're in high school, you're finishing high school, you're doing fire explorer, police explorer, telling parents you're going to go to college. And in the Guard now, did you enlist directly into the National Guard?
No, I started active duty
Okay.
4th ID was at that time down at Fort Hood, Texas. We've all heard about all the horror stories lately, but Fort Hood's always been like that. It's nothing new. So coming from the Midwest, sheltered lifestyle into the thick of a very, I wouldn't even call it an urban environment, but like a very different environment. Fort Hood during the day at the time was about 150,000 people. I came from a town that was 25,000. So it's even that was just a little bit of a culture shift.
Yep.
Obviously the Army's a culture shift. But yeah, I was active duty there as a 13 Fox. Worked at the Division Fire Support Cell. So my job when I came in was a forward observer.
Okay.
But my initial tour, which I was not happy at the time, now I'm actually glad for that time and experience, is that I was working at division level. So I wasn't out on the hill calling in fires like I thought I would be. I was actually at the division level.
Okay.
Working in that cell, managing all the fires for an entire division. So of course now later in my career that became in handy because now I know all the operations at a division level.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good. Looking back, it's probably a good thing. Stepping back just a little bit. So
Sure.
when you're in high school and you graduate, how is the enlistment process going through active duty? Did you know you wanted to be a 13 Fox? Did you reach out to your recruiter? Did they come to your school? Did you do research on your own about the military? Why did you choose active duty Army over other branches or specific jobs? How was that path for somebody that may be in that seat right now in high school?
Sure. I think I started a few years prior to when I was eligible. I was kind of looking at the military, things like that. Through the Police and Fire Explorer program, one of the guys was one of the police officers was an Air Force veteran. And he recommended, he's like, man, you do not need to go military police, because he was, but you should get the skill sets to learn weapon systems, to learn skill sets, to learn leadership, etc. So he's like, I recommend you just go into the military in general and kind of figure it out. And then that way you will have skill sets when you come out.
Okay.
So started there. I actually joined the delayed entry program. So I had a year prior to actually shipping out after my graduation. So I think I signed up when I was 17 and then graduated. So when I went to MEPS, I guess that would have been in the delayed entry period somewhere in there.
Sure.
I was originally going for infantry. I was going for 11 Bravo. I was going to go do the infantry thing.
Okay.
And the guy at MEPS is like, hey, check it out, man. Like, you can do this job and you can ride motor scooters and you can ride motorcycles and do all this cool stuff. You'll get promoted faster. And it's the same as the infantry. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I never rode a motorcycle.
Sure. So delayed entry program for viewers and listeners, right? On the active duty side, you essentially signed a contract probably at some point in your senior career with your recruiter, and you are promising to join. So as recruiters in Recruiting Retention Battalion, and for viewers and listeners that are thinking about this process, you see the recruiters coming into your high school and they talk about, especially on the active duty side, hey, we have a delayed entry program. You are promising to join. And we will meet monthly or probably every other month. Did you still meet with your recruiter before you shipped?
Pretty frequently. And honestly, like as a teenager, sometimes you're bored.
Yep.
And like, especially back then, we didn't have social media. We didn't have phones. We didn't have really internet for the most part. I mean, we had some, but it was like Oregon Trail. Like that was our computer game, right? So there wasn't a lot of other stuff. So a lot of times you would go places just to occupy your time. So sometimes I'd go hang out at the recruiting station after school.
Yep. That still happens. We see it here now. But for those that are, clicking on this video and maybe it's titled Warrant Officer, How to Become a Warrant Officer, Career Paths, whatever the genius ideas for Rivera that title this.
The title will come.
For the guard side, we don't have that delayed entry program. We do have a split training option. And so you can do your own research and go on to CO, our website, remind me.
CO Army Guard.
CO Army Guard, thank you. Google local National Guard recruiter and go talk to them with a split train option. Instead of just promising to join, you can join at 16 years, 11 months old with your parents' consent. And so you can be serving as a junior in high school, go to basic training in between your junior and senior year, and then be qualified as a soldier in the Colorado Army National Guard. And then after high school, you would then go to your AIT or your job training, whichever that is.
Yes.
So that's just for your information, the differences. And so you went through the delayed entry program, Chief.
Yes.
You graduated high school, obviously, and then 4th ID. Now you're in Texas. You're at battalion level.
Division.
Thank you. Excuse me. Division level. How much time did you spend down at Fort Hood? How much time did you spend active duty? What was your experiences with them? Deployments, schools, training? Was it everything that you wanted? Talking with your recruiter and then them telling you you're going to ride motorcycles and do all the cool things. Was it everything that you wanted? Looking back,
So it's interesting. This was actually pre 9/11. So the only real deployments back then was possibly Bosnia, which was pretty rare. There wasn't a whole lot going on. It was a Cold War army. So we did a lot of training, and we did it, I think, very well. I had extremely good leadership, extremely good NCOs.
good.
So my first experience was great on the NCO side, great leadership, great training. A lot of the stuff that's coming around now with large-scale combat operations, etc., is the same stuff that we were doing back then. It's not as complicated as everybody likes to make it sound, but it's because back then we could focus. And now I think we're distracted by other things that may or may not be relevant.
Okay.
But to get back to your point, I spent 3 years at Fort Hood, 3 years active duty. That was my initial contract. When I was doing the police explorers, as I got to my senior year, I started to feel like, man, this is a lot of paperwork. And so I started shifting more towards the fire side.
Okay.
So I decided to get out after my 3 years, and my goal was to get a firefighter job in Texas.
Okay.
So when I got out was 2001. Early 2001.
Okay.
So 9/11 hadn't kicked off yet. So as I'm leaving active duty, they're like, hey, do you want to join the Guard? I'm like, sure, I'll try it out. Why not? Turned out to be a really good idea. I think for most people that are coming off active duty, I think it's a good transition. Because this is all you've known for whatever period of time you were active duty. It's a good transition where now you're still associated with kind of that culture, that friends, etc.
Yep.
But now you have a civilian career. So you can kind of work both sides. It's a good transition, I feel. If we step back a little bit, when I was testing for the fire departments down in Texas, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later. At the time, there wasn't a lot of specific training for firefighter testing or police testing, etc. And so I tested for Austin Fire Department, and the test is still done today. It's called the CPAT, Candidate Physical Agility Test.
Okay.
It's a series of, I think, 10 or 11 different exercises, whatnot. And so I trained for it. At least I thought I did. And I passed with a decent amount of time, but I felt terrible. I'm like, man, this was not a good performance. I felt that something was missing in my training. And so I really started to drive down the human performance route. That was kind of the start there. When I failed that fire, I didn't fail it, but in my mind, it was a failure in training.
Sure.
To acquire the skills I needed to pass that test and feel good about it.
What was the test? Sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
Was the test, the physical test for fire, the same as your physical activities and PT that you were doing in active duty?
It was not. Not even close.
What were the differences?
If I remember the exercises correctly, the first one, you're on a step mill. And the step mill is set at a certain pace. You have a vest that's weighted, and then you have 2 packs that simulate a hose load.
Okay.
So you step that, I think it's for 11, 12 minutes, something like that. So that starts the test. That's your warm-up. So what I was doing is I was running up and down the stairs in the barracks with a duffel bag on, thinking that would transition, and it did not. The step height is different on the step mill than the steps in the barracks.
Sure.
So my calves in the first 2 or 3 minutes were on fire. Was not expecting that. So as we know with performance, and we can talk about this a little bit later, it starts to throw off your game a little bit. Got done with that. So your other couple tests are using a sledgehammer to move a device a certain distance. And so that's another test. We're using the sledgehammer to move a device a certain distance.
Okay.
It simulates forced entry. You have one where you're crawling through a zigzag of tubes that is dark and it's blacked out. So that simulates a rescue in a smoke-filled room. You have another one where you've got the pike pole and you're pulling down ceiling tiles. It's simulated. I think it's 40 or 50 pounds is on a lever, and you have to pull that down a certain amount of times.
Okay.
You have to carry chainsaws and circular saws and rescue tools and things like that. You have to raise a ladder. So very unrelated to what we're doing in PT.
Right.
Very specific to fire. And I thought going to the gym, doing a little bit of stair running, thought that would transition over, and it just did not.
Yeah. And what is your opinion? I know we're jumping super far
Sure.
ahead, but the PT test that you had during your time, I'm assuming it was before my time, but your PT test for the Army was 2 minutes of sit-ups, 2 minutes of push-ups, and a 2-mile run.
It was.
Right, and that was for any MOS in the Army, in the Reserves, in the National Guard.
Yep.
And now, recent change from the ACFT to the AFT, they're breaking it down. Instead of just 2 minutes push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a 2-mile run. They got rid of a ball throw, but now we're doing deadlifts, and we're doing sprint drag carries, and we're doing planks, and we're working on, in my opinion, more muscle groups and overall fitness level rather than how many push-ups and sit-ups can you do in a 2-minute period.
Sure.
But I've never gone down the path of fire, and hearing that's very job applicable. Do you think that the Army's going in the right direction with their AFT now compared to the old, PT test?
Sure. If we want to go down the rabbit hole, in my opinion, based off the recent deployments on our austere fire bases, whatever you are doing for the first 6 weeks is what you're going to adapt to fairly quickly. So I think the Army's objective, or the DoD as a whole, is to get you to a baseline of fitness to get through those 6 weeks, because after 6 weeks, you have acquired the skills required for whatever job you're doing.
Okay.
So if you're patrolling in the mountains of Afghanistan, within 6 weeks, you're going to be adapted to, probably not fully acclimated to elevation, but you will be acclimated to doing patrols under load.
Sure.
So I think the goal should be to get you to a general level of fitness to where you're able to survive that first 6 weeks without hampering the mission.
Okay. And I want to touch more on that, but going back, you are getting out of active duty, you're still at Fort Hood, and you have a career counselor, right, at Fort Hood pull you aside and say, hey, and we still have those, right, for active duty listeners. If you want to transition over to the Guard, like Chief was saying, we have so many people that come over from active duty, from different branches of service, and you find that home here with the servicemen and women that you had been serving with, and that was your life 24/7, 365. And so instead of getting shell-shocked back into possibly for your first time in the civilian world, you still are serving and you are still receiving all the benefits, and you still have that support team, which is what you chose. And so you transitioned from active duty to the Guard. Was that into the Texas Guard, Chief?
It was.
And how was that transition? Was it pretty simple? How was it coming from active duty to the Guard life?
You know, it's been a while. I don't remember the transition being super difficult. I remember it being fairly simple. Showed up to my unit, did drills with them, did training with them. And I want to say, so this would have been 2001. So by 2000, so obviously 9/11 happens a couple months after I've joined the Guard. So now there's a regain mission. So I've, I guess you could say, like, then now there's, because one of the reasons I got out of active duty is just everybody expected you to be a robot, have perfection, and it was just kind of that, with the Cold War mentality, like it just didn't, there was no mission.
Sure.
So why are we so nitpicky over the stuff that doesn't matter, right? Well, now you got 9/11, now you have a mission again. So everybody's excitement kind of goes through. So after 9/11, I want to say it's about a year-ish, my unit got activated for a stateside mission, Operation Noble Eagle.
Okay.
So obviously that was the only thing I did during that time frame, but that just kind of solidified kind of the Guard pathway. I guess you could say that's when I'm 85. So I was promoted during that tour. It was very simple. It was actually up here at Fort Carson, and that's how I got to Colorado, because I was like, hey, I really like this place, and I ended up staying here.
And what was the state mission?
At the time, it was to guard the Pueblo Chemical Depot.
Interesting.
And I think that was followed on actually by my current unit, 3 of the 157. They probably would have came in 2003. So also during that time period, you're looking at from 2002 to 2003, as we're going through this mission, Iraq kicks off. So units were going to Afghanistan, but not a whole lot. But now we got Iraq kicking off.
Okay. All right. So when you transitioned, where were you living when you got out of active duty in Texas?
Temple, Texas is just north of Austin and about 20, 30 minutes east of Fort Hood.
And then where was your drilling unit?
I was in New Braunfels, which was south of Austin, just north of San Antonio.
Okay.
It's a decent drive.
And so you're drilling, and you were able to keep your same MOS, right? 13 Fox.
I was.
Walked through, did all the right things, right place, right time, went above and beyond, got promoted during your stateside mission up here at Fort Carson. Mm-hmm. And so now you're an E5, you're an NCO, and are you still looking at fire at this period? I know you said that when you were at Colorado Springs, it kind of drove you here. How did that transition? Did you just stay after the stateside and stay in Colorado and IST? What happened?
So if we back up a little bit for the fire side, I actually went to the Texas Fire Academy. And that's why I was in Temple. They had a fire academy there in Temple. So I actually went to that academy in that small gap between when I had gotten off active duty and I was activated for that stateside mission.
Okay.
While I was on terminal leave, I actually went to EMT to get my Texas EMT. I had a Minnesota EMT qualification, basic. So I went to Texas. Texas is a little bit different. Most states do national, but Texas does their own thing on almost everything.
Oh, interesting.
The interesting thing about the fire academy down there is that they actually do all the certifications for Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 at the international level. So as all these wars are kicking off, I could have gone as a contractor with KBR overseas.
Okay.
Never got to that point just because doing actual missions with the Guard. But.
Sure. Okay, so all your certifications through fire, you're coming up here, you're in Colorado Springs, you're doing a stateside mission. What led you to obviously come to Colorado National Guard, and how was that process?
So obviously I like the nature and everything here, so I like the outdoors. Mm-hmm. So we left here, I think, in 2003, I think is when our mission was ending. Shortly after that, they're like, hey, we need volunteers to go to Iraq. So I actually, before I came back to Colorado, I was here briefly, hadn't transitioned to the Colorado Guard, but I actually deployed with the Texas Guard to Iraq starting in 2004.
2004. How was that deployment, Chief?
Interesting. So the pre-mobilization period during that time period, I want to say was like 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
You did a full JRTC rotation along with a bunch of other training ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Nobody really knew what we were getting into because 2004, like the insurgency was starting to peak, but it hadn't really got hot. So you have to get the units that were already in Iraq back to the States to train the next follow-on units. And so there was a little bit of a delay in like, hey man, this thing is going to be super hot and heavy, and actually like getting that training to the units that are about to go out. Mm-hmm. So I think we got probably the first generation of units that were coming back to train us.
Okay.
So we got really good training.
Good.
Especially down at JRTC, full rotation. It was pretty sweet. I mean, you got guys like running with a 50 cal on a stretcher, and like the sergeant major getting in fights with the commander. Like Wild West back then, like units were a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So you go. It was a pretty wild deployment. You were saying
2005.
2005.
So we started mobilization end of 2004. In 2005, the entire year, 12 months, we did the entire 2005 year in Iraq.
Were you doing your job as a 13 Fox during your deployment?
Sort of.
I
was attached to, so with the 13 Fox, I can be attached to any maneuver. Maneuver being any type of infantry, any type of armor.
Okay.
Technically, attack aviation as well. There were, and I don't think they have them anymore, but there were aerial observers at one point.
Okay.
That would get up with a helicopter and actually observe fires from a helicopter. But I was attached to a tanker unit. We actually just had our 20th year reunion back in May.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so super cool to see those guys. I haven't seen them for 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was good. So I was attached to them as a 13 Fox, but our primary mission for the most of the tour was doing escorts on mostly, Tampa, bringing logistics throughout the country.
Okay. And so you wrap up the deployment, you come back to Texas, and then what's the next step?
So I had already established an apartment before I left in Colorado. So I put everything in storage in Colorado, and then I made the transition to Colorado. And that would have been, I take it back, I actually did an OCT tour for 6 months post-deployment. So half of 2006, I was actually at North Fort Hood training units that were about to go.
Okay. And you volunteered for that?
I did.
Okay.
And
so
then I came back to Colorado.
do that training rotation, and come to Colorado. And is that when you kind of officially interstate transferred
Correct.
or IST'd from the Texas National Guard to the Colorado National Guard?
Correct.
Which led you continue that story now that you're with us.
So 2000, so it would have been halfway 2006, about 2007-ish time frame, I think, is when I fully started, because I had terminal leave and et cetera. So around 2007, I started with Colorado. They did not have an infantry unit at the time. So there was no maneuver in Colorado. So as a 13 Fox, I could go hang out a brigade, which in my mind had already done a division. I didn't want to sit on a computer.
Right.
It didn't make any sense. I wanted to get out on the line. The closest thing they had to infantry at the time was MPs. MPs were offering $20,000 bonus to join them and go deploy. So deployment in 2008 with the MPs, I actually got promoted into a 13 Fox position while on that deployment. So I had an MOSQ change for a very brief period
Okay.
while I was with the MPs, and then I got promoted back into 13 Fox when the new infantry unit came on board. So I was with the MPs very shortly, got $20,000, and I'm like, laters.
We talk about opportunities and
Yes.
volunteering and raising your hand. Just your stories, Chief, the OCT tour, the availability to, hey, I want to live in Colorado. I want to do this. We tell applicants when they come in the office, it's like the Guard, in my opinion and your opinion, and so far your opinion, your life that you've lived, Chief, is a choose your own adventure story.
Sure.
You get to decide where you want to serve and how you want to serve is exactly what you're doing. So
Absolutely.
when you reclassed, you voluntarily reclassed and changed your job in the National Guard. What MOS did you hold with the MPs?
I was as an MP.
As an 31 Bravo?
Yep.
So reclass, did you have to go to reclass school for 31 Bravo?
I did 2 weeks at Camp Ball, I think it's Louisiana.
Okay.
Very interesting. Most of the class or reclasses to get the bonus to go deploy and then go back to their own old job.
Yeah, a lot of people doing what you're doing.
I didn't know that was going to happen because I didn't know infantry was coming. But
Did anybody, was all of this in your head? What was your thought process behind all of this? Did you have a leader or a mentor telling you, hey, this is what you should be doing? Or were you just letting life come and taking those opportunities?
yeah, more just to let it come, and I just wanted to get back on the ground. So I just come from a deployment,
Yep.
gotten OCT. The OCT work that we were doing was a lot of like close quarter shooting, doing the shoot house, training units on a lot of that stuff. That was our specific thing. Even though we're an FA unit, for whatever reason, they chose us to do that.
Good.
So I wanted to get back into that kind of like down, deep, dirty grunt work.
Yep.
And that was as close as it got.
One thing I want to mention is that going back to the volunteering portion,
Yeah.
you said a lot of people were trying to do the reclass for the money. You didn't knew because
I didn't know.
at the moment we didn't have an infantry unit. So I have a saying. I think I said it before in other podcasts. The way I see opportunities is a door. You either open it and go through, or you let the door close and get locked, but you cannot open it again.
Yeah.
So I think you did that. You saw the door, you opened the door, you went deployed, you got your $20,000 bonus, but not because you were trying to get that. It was because the opportunity that it was available for you was that. You took it, you came back, and you got promoted on your previous MOS.
Amen. Whether, in the National Guard, if you're looking into it and you're going on our site and you're going on Instagram and you're going on Facebook and you're seeing all these things, and maybe you're talking to a recruiter, if you have a life established and you have family and you have your civilian friends and an amazing career, and all you want to do is 1 weekend a month, and that's it, and then 2 weeks in the summer, you can do that. But if you want to open that door, if you want to experience more, if you want to get out of the lull that you are in and try something else,
you gotta expose yourself.
Yep. Yeah.
You just gotta raise your hand, volunteer, and then the opportunities will come.
Amen. Okay, so Going back to you, Chief, you reclassed. What'd you spend the money on? Something cool?
I think I saved it.
Good. So,
well, he went deployed, so he didn't have the need to spend the money.
Yeah,
he was getting
yeah.
paid.
There was, I think at the time, I mean, there wasn't a lot of internet, and like apps where you could invest were very few and far between. There wasn't
Okay.
apps at the time. There was websites.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think I invested in something where you could do fractional shares, and that was like revolutionary at the time.
Wow.
So I was able to do fractional shares of a lot of companies. I actually got, Netflix in 2007. I didn't get enough because
Sure.
fractional shares. So I had some of that stuff set up to do investing, but
Okay.
I think that also is around the time frame when TSP started. So I got into investing in a lot of that stuff. I
Very
was
good.
putting a lot of money into that as much as I could.
For on the civilian side, for those that are listening and watching, TSP versus civilian. Do you know a lot about that? Can you explain?
I do. Through a savings plan, you are now coming into a blended program where you will have 5% automatically matched into your investments. So your investments are at the TSP. There's different funds. You got your G, your I, your S, which is international government funds, general, large cap American funds, etc. With pretty low fees, so they do pretty well. I think a lot of people assume because it's a government-run thing, it's not that effective, but they use civilian managers. I've had years where I've had over 20% gains, so it's not unusual to have decent gains if you allocate correctly. A lot of people do not, but now that is a portion of your retirement. So if you are on the blended program, instead of getting 50% retirement, you'll get 40%, but you get the matching. I don't get matching. I wish I did.
Yeah, I got matching.
Yeah.
So, and it's a difference. But when you see that statement
Yes.
at the end of the year, and you see your annual statement, and you see how much they match, you're like, oof.
But yeah, you were doing the right thing financially. And yeah, I think that is a stereotype that's out there, government taking care of you. The Guard, I've seen it in my career, only progress further. I can't remember our points of contact that we have in the Guard. The two civilians that will help soldiers invest wisely, use their VA loan, VA business loan, whatever it is, home loan, their TSP contribution. I'm not a financial advisor, don't take financial advice from me, but all that money goes into the G fund, which is essentially a savings account. But if you allocate it, like you were saying, Chief, you can, if you do a 20-year career in the Colorado National Guard, and you have your retirement and your TSP, and you can have a civilian Roth IRA and a civilian retirement, it's kind of a cheat code.
Yeah. Yeah, is the compounding, they put in everything, like, from different pots of money.
Yep.
And then at the end, once you retire, that's the combination is gonna get you like afloat.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not like getting paid and then using 100% of your money, putting some aside and letting the government match. For me, I've seen that grown, and I'm happy with my decision.
Yep.
So
you can borrow against it, emergency loans, very low rate. If life happens, you need to do something. That's a whole different. We'll get somebody on the podcast to come in from.
We should get the financial. Yeah,
that'd be a really good one. So okay, you go deploy with 220th. 220th MPs here in Colorado, and where was that deployment, Chief?
Baghdad.
Okay, so back over to the Middle East. How was that deployment compared to your first deployment?
If you got peaks and lows, I wouldn't say it was a bad deployment, but it was detainee operations. So it was not out in the fight, which 2007 was a very hot and heavy period. I was in 2005, which is a very hot and heavy period. So I was coming from that high intensity, expecting to go back into that high intensity, and it was just kind of hanging out in a prison and watching detainees.
Okay.
So not a bad deployment. So what I found is that throughout my career, the deployments where you may have high intensity, but less on the strategic side, and then they flip-flop. You have less intensity, but you're doing more strategic operational level work.
Okay.
So that's what this deployment ended up being, is that we were looking at detainees, and where we're doing some of the interactions with them, we're picking up intel, we're passing it up to higher levels, ends up being like theater level type actionable intel. So it ended up being productive. It just seemed really boring at the time because you're just watching a bunch of guys in a prison.
Okay, and so we wrap up. You come back home from that deployment here in the Colorado National Guard. You are now dual MOS. You're a 13 Fox and a 31 Bravo military police officer. You got promoted. You are now a
G6.
staff sergeant. And what's the next step? You come home from that deployment back here to Colorado.
So now I'm going to be going into the infantry. I actually did another OCT tour, this time at Fort Lewis.
Volunteer for
volunteer.
that one? Okay.
Yep.
Another
And that
opportunity.
was up in Fort Lewis for a year. This time instead of 6 months. So I did a full 12 months up in Fort Lewis, primarily training the other components. So we would train Air Force, National Guard, Reserve components, Coast Guard, Navy Reserve components, primarily the other joint services in Army type stuff like the rollover trainer or driving vehicles or the M9 range or the M4 range.
Sure.
During that OCT time, I actually got a lot of time on the range. So there was a lot of rounds left over. So me and my buddy would just go shoot. Sometimes the units would have left over 5,000 rounds. So we would go shoot. They had a lot of courses up at Fort Lewis. You had the precursor to Squad Designated Marksman.
Okay.
So they had that course. You shooting with lasers at night, doing all sorts of cool stuff. They did the combat pistol application course, I think is what they called it at the time.
Okay.
That was a newer course that was out there. And again, all this was trying to get better at the Iraq fight because we had learned some lessons and we're trying to bring that back and start courses that would develop those skill sets.
Okay. And so it's funny because you spent time active duty and you were thinking about fire and wanted to move to beautiful Colorado, and all of a sudden you're volunteering for more active duty involvement and more active duty training time.
While in the Guard.
You're essentially kind of being back on active duty, coming back from Iraq, doing another OCT tour, which makes 2 now, and then you come home from that, and is that when you start thinking about the rank on your chest now, sir, or what was the next step?
So there was actually 5 years in the infantry battalion.
5 years, because it stood up in 2010-ish,
somewhere in there. So when I came back from that OCT tour, it was live, ready to go. So I rolled into it as a 13 Fox, part of the 5th platoon, which is fire support team. Our platoon is generally split up into sections that go to each company, maneuver company, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and then sometimes a weapons company.
Sure.
Not as much. But also at HAC, you've got the mortars. So we worked a lot with them. You also have the scouts, so we work a lot with them. At the battalion level, you are starting to look at targeting. So this is where I start looking at, hey, I could be a warrant and be doing the same thing, but at a higher level.
Now, when you say, hey, I could be, was that you doing your own research? Was that officers and senior NCOs in your unit kind of telling you those opportunities? What got that in your mind?
Mostly I was just familiar that there was a artillery warrant officer.
Okay.
And I had seen one when I was active duty, and it's kind of funny. So he's like, yeah, I got those radars over there. He's like, I don't even know what they do, bro. Like I'm just trying to figure it out.
Okay.
So traditionally that was our previous specialty, was radars. And it's shifted since then. And we can kind of get into that when I get to school. But so I was familiar that there were artillery warrant officers. I had one at division also. He was the targeting officer at division.
Okay.
And he did some stuff, and I don't really know what he did, but he drank coffee and was angry. So
sure.
Yeah, typical warrant officer.
And so you chose to go back, even though you were a 31 Bravo, you chose to go back as the 13 series E6. When the infantry stood up here in Colorado, you're with the infantry, and how many years total?
5 with the infantry battalion, and I would say they're probably some of my most formative besides deployments.
What was the difference between a brand new infantry unit and the time that you had spent with military police and from artillery back in Texas? What was the differences?
I think the big thing was just the training you're doing is just on the ground. It's all the stuff I wanted to do when I first came in. I was like, man, I'm finally going out there. I'm going with the teams, getting up on the hill, like calling in fire, doing all the fun stuff. And it sucks in the field. Like, we all know that. But you look back, you're like, oh, that was entertaining. Like, Kazakhstan. Everybody got sick from dysentery, but it's a memorable experience. Like, you're not going to forget it.
Yeah. You miss the clowns, you don't miss the circus, right?
Yeah.
That's if you're prior service. Okay. And so you're with 1st 157th, you're attached, you're doing your thing, you're thinking about warrant. And what was the driving force? How much research did you do? Did you start reaching out to warrants here in Colorado? Did you start asking traditional officers? Did you just put in a packet and find the information on your own? What led to that decision to go to warrant officer candidate school?
Mostly luck.
Okay.
2015, the Army decided that they were going to take, maybe it was 2014, but around that time frame, the Army decided they were going to take all the 13 Foxes, all the forward observers, out of the maneuver and put them into the division artillery, which is called DFARTI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what that did at the guard level is it took all of the 13 Foxes from the artillery, or from the infantry, and placed them out into the northeast, because that was the higher headquarters for the infantry battalion. So their DFARTI is out with the BCT, which is underneath the division.
Okay.
So all of the 13 Fox positions in the state basically disappeared except for brigade, which has like a couple. It's not very many.
And so they were telling you, the Army was telling you that you needed to possibly reclass again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so are you thinking about going back to MPs, or was that the turning point to say, I'm going to go down this other path?
So again, luck is at roughly around that same time period. The senior warrant officer in the state, who happened to be an artillery warrant officer, was also the primary instructor at WOX, your warrant officer candidate school.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, hey, you and this guy, you are qualified to be warrant officers. Would you like to put in a packet? Completely happenstance.
I wanted to touch on that just a little bit today, because we have people, and I know other recruiters, if you're watching, your applicants, we have a lot of applicants that they do their own research. Like you were saying, when you joined, the internet wasn't, the social media and just the amount of information, it's prevalent now. And some of it's good, some of it's bad. We want you to do your own research if you're thinking about the Guard. But we have people coming in now that, I just got a text the other day, with my scores, looking at my SASVAB from high school, would I be considered for warrant officer? What are the class sizes? What are my chances of getting into warrant officer school, and how fast can I get this done? We have applicants that are seniors in high school that know the process because they're doing their own research.
Sure.
For you, when you had the state warrant officer tell you that you're eligible, what for those that don't know and haven't done their research yet, what makes you eligible, not eligible? What are the qualifications for becoming a warrant officer? Do you have to come from a different line of MOSs? Can you just tell us how you knew you were eligible from the state warrant officer at the time?
Sure. So each job is specific, so they have their own qualifications. As a general rule, you should have some years as an NCO, depending on the job career field.
Okay.
And even our career field has changed. So they are now trying a test to try and get junior soldiers that are E4 and E5 into warrant officer earlier, so that way when they retire, they can retire at 20 at a decent grade, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that is the push from the warrant officer college as a whole. I don't know if they're going to maintain that. So they are looking at junior soldiers, but they're mostly looking for those that already have college, they've got life experience, that sort of thing. They're looking more for the mature junior soldiers.
Okay.
If you're coming fresh out of high school, you could definitely go aviation. That is the one that you can go, they call it high school to flight school. So that is the one warrant officer career field that you can go from high school if you qualify, and a lot of that has to do with your vision and has to do with your testing scores on the aviation specific test.
Okay. And for even some of those that don't know, and it took me many years from when I joined to kind of start realizing, understanding the differences between the enlisted ranks and the officer ranks, and now this warrant officer ranks. But not every branch has warrant officers, correct? It's just us and the United States Army. Do Marine Corps still have warrant officers? And I think it's just us two, correct, Chief?
Navy also.
Oh, Navy.
Coast Guard, which semi-DOD, does have warrant officers also.
Okay.
The largest difference between us and the Marine Corps, the Air Force does not have them anymore. They used to. They may bring them back. Is that the Marine Corps, if they're in the same MOS as I am, I come out of my school as a Warrant Officer 1. They come out of their school as a Chief Warrant Officer 1. So the difference is that when we hit CW2, we hit Chief Warrant Officer, which is now a commissioned officer. So it's slightly different, and I believe part of that is just because of the aviation culture within the Army.
Okay.
That's our predominant warrant officer line. So in my MOS specifically, typically the main thing we're looking for is personality. Can you talk to people? Can you talk to a division or corps commander? And then you're looking at like GT score is one of the things that's probably not waiverable. You'll probably have to retake your ASVAB if it's below 110.
110. Yep. Okay. And so how was the process when the state, at the time, the state warrant officer told you, hey, you're going to be eligible? How was the process of putting together that packet? As already being a service member, a non-commissioned officer, senior non-commissioned officer, active duty, guard, multiple deployments, multiple training rotations. How hard was it to get that packet? Because we know people want to do it.
Yep. It was lengthy.
Okay.
I would say for me, it probably took 3 or 4 months. You've got to get documentation for your medical stuff. So you have to go through another physical, an officer physical.
Okay.
And that there's plenty of candidates that have come around and they have 15, 20 years in service and they don't qualify because of the physical. So that's another stopgap sometimes.
Okay.
So you've got physical medical stuff you've got to do. You've got your NCOERs. They're going to want to see all that. Other documents administratively, things like that. They will take all that and they will send it to your branch, your active duty branch. So mine goes to Fort Sill, being artillery.
Okay.
And then Fort Sill's, typically with the Guard, they're not going to question a state. You'll have to get a letter from the senior warrant officer of that MOS within the state, or a senior.
Letter of recommendation.
Letter of recommendation.
Okay, got it, Chief.
And all of that will go together. It'll get sent off to whatever your branch is. They'll say yes or no, and then that'll come back to the state, and then you go to your candidate school.
Okay. And so for now, you've done the process. Took you about 4 months. You said you got the letters of recommendation. Your physical obviously went well. And there's a couple different routes that you can take to become a warrant officer, either traditional, correct, as a guardsman, or there's a federal school, correct? Can you explain the differences for those that are looking into warrant officer school and the path that you took?
Sure. It's changed a little bit, and I'm not sure what they're going to do for this next year. It may be slightly different just because of funding and things like that. But my process is you could go down to Alabama. What at the time was Fort Rucker. I think it's Fort Noblesville now.
Okay.
You can go there for 5 weeks, but they generally don't authorize that for most guardsmen. That's also where the flight school is at for aviation. For most of us, we have to go through a state course. And so Colorado has a state warrant officer candidate school.
Correct.
And it was, I believe, 8 or 9 months of drill weekends, typically mu to 6s. So you're Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
So you'd come in, I take that back, a mu to 5. So it was Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday day, and then Sunday. Was your warrant officer candidate school, and you were a warrant officer candidate going through the exact same curriculum you would in that 5 weeks, just spread out over 8 or 9 months, and then you'll go to a 2-week period where you are in with all the other warrant officer candidates from all around the country, and you'll go through that final phase. Now they're actually front loading that in the front side.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And so you went the active duty route, correct, for school?
Did not.
Oh,
For school.
Yeah, for warrant officer school.
So once you finish your candidate school and you become a warrant officer, then you'll go to your basic school, your basic course.
Okay. How was that for you with all of the experience that you had up until this point?
So warrant officer candidate school was definitely the difference. So we got Canada Rivera here is going through OCS. The difference that I've seen, because I have taught a couple courses of fire support stuff with the OCS class, OCS tends to be a little bit more, I would say, they've got a longer time frame, so they're not trying to compress everything. With the WOCS, the Warrant Officer Candidate School, everything's very compressed. So you're getting as much history as all the officers do at their normal schools.
Okay.
So everything's very compressed. So instead of doing physical punishment, typically it's going to be some type of cognitive punishment. So like, write this report because you did X, etc. 500 words by the standard, handwritten, etc. Versus OCS, it might be more, hey, do 50 push-ups or something a little bit more where you have the time. And I find that WOCS is a little bit more compressed, and they tend to try and cram as much in as possible. So it's a lot more cognitive. It's a lot more, are you good at taking tests?
Okay.
Are you able to pick up on concepts very quickly? Most of us in my MOS are the guys who have never, scored less than a 97 on any military test ever.
Sure.
Other MOSs, I'm not sure, but at least in mine, we're very competitive, very aggressive. So when we go to our basic course, it's now 8.5 months at Fort Sill. And you start off, when I went through, again, the radars used to be a thing, not so much anymore. You would basically get an electrical engineering degree in the first 2 weeks and test on it. Like, it's just, boom, here you go.
Wow.
So, like, you have to be able to pick up, and that's what Warrant Officer Candidate School tries to teach, is how well you can read a document of technical information and apply it.
Okay.
And so when you get to your basic course, now you're having to apply to your specific career field.
Okay. And your career field being?
A 131 Alpha, which is a field artillery targeting technician. The main, to simplify it, what we do is we pair effects on targets to assets available to meet the commander's intent.
Okay. Did you choose that, Chief?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So that was the path. So in order to qualify currently for our MOS, you can be any 11 series, you can be a Cav Scout, or you can be any 13 series.
Okay.
Previously, it was only 11 Charlie and 13 series. Now they've opened it up a little bit to more maneuver because we tend to deal with division and corps staff and commands.
Okay. And so you go through Warrant Officer Candidate School, and then your basic. What's the next step after? And you did, and for you, you would touch base on what happens now for a traditional guardsman in Colorado National Guard going through the one drill weekend a month. That is your Warrant Officer Candidate School.
Correct.
But you went straight through.
Nope, I did the 1 weekend a month.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So you did the 1 weekend a month,
Yep.
and then you did your basic.
Yep.
And then what's next?
Deployment.
Another deployment.
So the only positions for 131 Alpha in the state are at the Artillery Battalion, which is HIMARS, which is where I am now. And there's also positions up at Brigade. So 169 FAB has several 131 Alpha positions, and that's where I was slotted once I was complete with the basic course.
And how soon after basic course completion, ceremony, pin, Warrant Officer 1, you are now into a new unit here in the National Guard. And when you showed up, how long before you guys were gone?
I think we probably went to pre-mob, because at the time I think we had PTAE.
Yeah.
It was still here. And for those that don't know, that was kind of a pre-mobilization training assistance group.
Guard specific.
Yep. I think we started going to them probably 3-4 months after my basic course.
Wow. Okay.
So fresh out of the gate, brand new warrant officer. Hey, you're going to go run radar operations in a combat theater.
Okay. And so going back, you're almost full-time military still, from leaving active duty at Fort Hood, and now you're in Colorado. You've done this, you've deployed, you've come back, Warrant Officer Candidate School, basic. You come back to FA, you're gearing up for another deployment. What is your civilian side? Because people worry about that too.
Sure.
Hey, am I going to be this busy if I join the National Guard?
Sure.
Or what were you doing on the civilian side as well, filling in that time?
Yeah, so when I got into the infantry, I started a business, which was a brick and mortar, I guess you could call it a gym, but it was more, at the time what was popular was boot camps, doing, 12 people exercising in the morning, early hours, and it wasn't like military boot camp. I didn't yell at anybody, but it was exercise primarily for middle-aged adults trying to lose weight.
Okay. That's awesome. Did the Guard or military benefits help you with opening that business?
I don't really think so.
Okay.
I tried to get an SBA loan, but at the time I had never owned a credit card. So they're like, you don't have a credit history. So even though I'd paid off all my car loans early, I'd paid off everything early.
Yeah.
Turns out that's bad for your credit.
Sure.
So I ended up not really getting any benefits. So it was all that stuff that I'd saved from deployments. I used that cash.
Okay.
To start the business.
Still up and running the business?
Partially, but now it's not brick and mortar. Now it's mostly online.
Yep. Okay. And I want to talk about that. But okay, now we're back in FA. You're a targeting warrant officer, 1, and you go to deploy. You had been to Iraq. Where's this deployment?
This started off, so this is 2017. If you're familiar with the 2017 timeframe, and granted, we got there like late 2016, but it's basically 2017.
Okay.
Early 2017 is when Mosul kicked off, where they were trying to retake Mosul from ISIS. And then also on the other side, which I ended up into, was Syria was trying to take Raqqa. So 2 large offensive while I was there. So I started off in al-Assad in Iraq. Great task force. This is hands down the best senior leadership I've ever experienced.
Really?
It was a Marine Corps task force primarily, but you had Air Force, Army, Marines. Not that many of us. I think it was 300-400. Like, it's this very small, austere base. It was one of those places where you fill 2 sandbags when you come out of the DFAC because we have to basically take care of ourselves. There's not a lot of large assets. You've got an outer perimeter that's mostly manned by Iraqis that don't like us. So a lot of our stuff came in by air. So we have to go secure that from the airfield, bring it in. And it's a very small, tight-knit group that was just a very good culture when it came to how they operated, how everybody was family. The task force commander, if anybody knew I came on the base, he would go sit with them for 30 minutes. Didn't matter if they were in E4, E1, doesn't matter. He would go sit with them for 20, 30 minutes. Hey, what questions do you have for me? You don't get to talk to a full-bird colonel very often, especially from the Marine Corps. Like, it was just a very good culture, and his command and staff was excellent.
How did you feel warrant officer school and your basic school prepared you for? Were you doing what you were taught to do? Were you did the Army prepare you going to these schools?
It did.
Okay.
So, like I said before, we previously were doing mostly radar stuff initially. So your W1, W2 timeframe was typically on a radar or doing something what's called counterfire. So we see bad guys shoot, and we shoot back. And that's what the radar is for, is to identify those incoming rounds so we can shoot that location that they shot from. So during my time, that's what I was doing, is I was doing the radar portion. I was not really, so it's typically a PL, but the Army was transitioning to having regular officers be PLs, which is what they are now. It is just a regular commissioned officer. So I was working on the base by myself as the only officer with a small section of operators for the radar system that we had at that base.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad that the school prepared you as it should. You did your job over there, did it well. You said, looking back from your original deployment, enlisted as a 13 Fox, and then a deployment as a military police officer enlisted. What was the shift? If somebody's going to think about, hey, I have a state mission coming up, I have a federal mission coming up, a deployment, we have a training exercise, whatever the case is, what was the biggest shift and difference you saw from walking the enlisted side and doing your job as the enlisted and now being a warrant?
In charge of a section. So we were in Iraq only for a few months, and then we actually switched to Syria. And Syria was literally living in a hole in the ground. Like they dug it out with a backhoe, put some pallets on top, and like we were there as a austere fire base for the offensive of Raqqa, supporting that 777s. So in that environment, for me, that was probably peak small unit leadership. Like, you've got to have all your stuff dialed in, and you've got to be on your game, and you're just naturally on your game because everybody's there to survive. Now you have a base much smaller than what we came from, so now you're talking, a company size operating this base, and you have to survive. There's not just like, nobody can not do their job. Everybody has to do their job, or the base doesn't survive.
Right.
So I guess that's the big. So part of it was the mission. The mission was just so intense, but at the same time, it wasn't GWAT intense. It wasn't like every night you're going out getting blown up by IEDs. We did get rocketed every so often, but it didn't have that same feel as the GWAT. But as a section lead, it was it's definitely that elevation of like, now you're getting your skills tested. And one of the things I want to get out of the warrant officer side is that you can test yourself physically. A lot of people do that. A lot of jobs do that. A lot of different career fields. I wanted to test the challenges of problem solving.
Okay.
And that absolutely tested it, just because of the environment, the nature of the fight, everything else. When you really had to test the problem solving skills that you may or may not have to do as much of at the enlisted side.
On the enlisted side, and you were afforded those problems, and you solved them. Amen. Okay, so you come. Okay, and so you wrap up. You come back. FA comes back here stateside, and you still have the business, or was it put on hold?
Not in person? And I think I came back. I did. So I had a lot of terminal leave. So the more deployments you stack up, the more leave you get beyond just what you earned during that period. You have something called PDHRMA. And so it's additional leave days that they give National Guard and reserves for too many. I guess I don't know how to word it, but if you have deployments stacked within a certain time period, you get additional leave.
Okay.
So I had a lot.
So you come home with a lot of leave.
So I went and did, after that was done, I think my leave was done, I did a warfighter out at Fort Bragg. For those that don't know, warfighter is like a division and corps level exercise. Big, huge exercise. And we worked with the British. We worked with a little bit of the joint forces. And you're just doing this big, huge exercise like large-scale combat operations.
Volunteer for that as well, Chief?
I did.
Okay. So,
It's only
another door.
Yes.
Okay. So now you're doing this.
And that was only, a week or two. But then what that led to is they're like, hey, we need some OCTs again. I'm like, I'm already qualified.
Done it twice.
So I did an ADOS tour.
And for those, they ask all the applicants always ask, can I come work full time for the Guard? Yeah, you can.
Pretty close.
Call your recruiter. Go on Google, call our National Guard recruiter. You'll find one. We have technician slots. We have ADOS, which is active duty operational support. We have OTOT, one-time operational tour. We have AGR, Active Guard Reserve. We have. We'll go down that rabbit hole. It's endless, the opportunities if you want to be on orders or work for the Guard. So you volunteered ADOS, and how was that?
So that was, they called it OCT, but it was slightly different what I previously did. We would go to exercises around the country that Guard units were involved in. Sometimes they were just general warfighters or things like that.
Okay.
And we would observe
Okay.
and bring the lessons back to Colorado was the goal. So my goal was to go to find artillery units, whether it's a FAB or a DeVarty or anything of that nature that was artillery related, and bring those lessons back to Colorado.
Was it good lessons brought?
For the most part, yes.
Good.
And I think a lot of the lessons that get learned are the same across the board. Army, just as a whole, we're not good at applying those lessons.
Okay. Now, for your active duty operational support tour, how long were you on orders with the Colorado National Guard during that period?
I believe 2 years.
2 years. And so you had left active duty to come be active duty in the National Guard, and broaden your resume with more trainings and more deployments. Are you promoted? Or did you pick up Warrant Officer 2 at this point?
Yes, I think I got CW2, and then
During deployment, during ADOS?
would have been during ADOS.
During ADOS. Did you have to go to a school? How does, and maybe I'll let you two kind of talk about it for just a second, because from me on just the enlisted side, I've only ever been enlisted. I love it. I love training soldiers. That is my responsibility, and now recruiting and training new soldiers to come into this organization. But from you and future sir, on the officer side, traditional and warrant, what does the progression path look like compared to enlisted? So for enlisted, if you're doing the right thing, the right place, the right time, all of your qualifications are met, your weapons qualification, your height, weight, your PT, your PHA, and your health is good, and you're going to on the enlisted side, your NCOES, your advancement schools to pick up sergeant and staff sergeant and sergeant first class. What's the difference between traditional officer and warrant?
So from the warrant side, ours is very similar to enlisted.
Okay.
If you've got all your stuff in line, there's a time period, and generally at that time period, you submit your packet. Now the difference is that it does have to go all the way to Congress and get signed off, just like a regular officer.
Okay.
So you do have to go on the scroll, so that takes time. But in general, as long as you got all your stuff done and you do your schools, you should be on track.
Okay. Is that the same thing that you have been prepped and briefed going through OCS?
Yes, and then for promotions is obviously is branch dependent, and then to see how much load do we have. So obviously similar to walks, you do your traditional, your federal or accelerated, and then you do you go to BOLIC, which is same as your basic training, and then you come back. I think from second to first is kind of automatic, and then once you get to captain, you got to go captain career course. Some people do it earlier, some people do it later. For example, my wife, her MOS is super rare.
Yeah,
she's been a captain 3 years. She have never been into captain career course, but is super branch dependent.
Sure.
So for her, like it's like they give priority to those that been in for years, because AMED is different.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. So on the traditional officer career path, right? You're doing your platoon time, your company time, your commander time, and you may be asked to move to a different unit that is new to you. But on the warrant side, you're staying in your career field. Is that correct?
For the most part, you'll stay probably even at the same unit, depending on your career field. We've got a lot of positions, say, for the admin warrants or the logistics warrants or things like that. They have a little bit more opportunity to flex around. For us in the artillery, we've got one position in the battalion and everything else is a brigade. So it's a little bit more static.
And same thing on the pilot. I'm assuming if you do flying warrant, you go to a warrant officer school and put in a flight packet, you're staying in aviation.
Probably.
For your career.
You could maybe, and on the warrant officer side, probably not as much, but on the officer side, they'll flex a little bit.
Right.
But for a warrant officer, you're pretty much going to fly that aircraft, that airframe, unless you decide to fly a different one, which sometimes does happen. But for us, we stay in the same career path. And a lot of our positions are coded, so that way you can flex your rank up and down. So it might say CW2, but you can go 2 up, or you can go 1 down.
Ooh, very good. Okay. So you're not stuck, kind of like you could be, like you were saying. I just can't remember where you could be stuck on the officer side if you have this very specific MOS.
Yes and no, because once you hit captain, you can rebranch. So a lot of people, a lot of the leadership I talk here in the Guard, they all kind of start on some point in one branch, and majority of them rebranch. And I think that's a good thing, It makes you a more valuable person. It gives you more experience, more skills.
It's kind of the same on the enlisted side.
Yes.
And we tell people in this organization, if you're burnt out, drop a packet for warrant. You might be qualified. Drop a packet for OCS.
You can reclass for 2. What was that? 1 deployment.
Yeah, 2 weeks for that deployment.
1 deployment.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Get a bonus. Come back. Go back to your previous MOS.
Okay.
That's stuff you can do.
Choose your own adventure. Colorado National Guard.
Typically, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this, around 8 to 12 years is when I find most soldiers are like, I got to make a decision. Am I staying or am I going? And I think I have avatars, and I call that the crux period. Like, that's the period where you probably have had your first injury or your first downfall, and you're kind of overcoming that and do I want to keep going? And you might need that shift. Just something a little bit different to kind of refresh yourself and push through.
And whether that's officer, warrant, enlisted, mix it up. Okay, so you pin CW2. Now you are Chief Warrant Officer 2. During your ADOS time, you are traveling around. What happens when that ended, Chief?
I'm trying to remember. I think that would have been. So, if I remember correctly, so during that period, opportunities are always popping up. So as you go and work for these other units, they're like, hey, man, like, would you like to come and deploy with us? So I was at a warfighter, and I was helping out Wyoming's FAB, which is their Field Artillery Brigade.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, would you like to deploy with us? I'm like, no, I got other plans. But then I started to think about it. The Olympics were coming up in 2020. And I was like, this is my one opportunity where I can have 3 months off and not have to worry about being paid if I go on this deployment. And I would have all the cash to pay for the Olympics. And my plan was actually go stay in the mountains and do a martial arts school for 3 months.
Okay.
So that was the plan. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
And the plan was to go and watch the Olympics while during the week I was doing a martial arts camp up in the mountains doing who knows what. But
sure,
it would have been super exciting and something completely different. I would have had the time to do it because I would have had lots of leave. Wouldn't have to worry about pay. But then, of course, 2020 is 2020. So, but I did deploy with Wyoming.
Okay. So now your 4th deployment.
Yes.
With the Wyoming Army National Guard, doing the same job that you did with the Field Artillery as a targeting warrant with us, correct?
Same career field, different aspect this time.
Okay.
So my job was actually at the Special Operations Joint Task Force as an LNO for the FAB. So an LNO is a liaison. So I was helping facilitate any special operation needs for HIMARS at the time or anything fires related. So I would help with planning. I would help them kind of organize and make sure that everything was synced between the two organizations.
Okay.
What it ended up turning into is that I would help them with a lot of other things because of my 2017 tour where now everybody's freaking out about drones. And I called it drone fever at the time because everybody freaks out about drones and it's probably overhyped. But because of the experience in 2017, I could bring some of that knowledge back. And at the time, CW3 was looking to do assessments and like figure out what was actually going on with a lot of this drone stuff. So I helped them out with their Force Pro side while I was there. And, sometimes there's a lot to do with the FA side, with the fire side, and sometimes there just wasn't. So I would help them out with other things as much as possible. So there's always opportunities, again, like we talked about opportunities, and there was just opportunities to do work, even if you didn't have something directed.
How was it working with Wyoming and not being with your unit here in Colorado? Good deployment. Good.
Awesome deployment. And it kind of goes back to that ebb and flow where less intense. We weren't getting rocketed all the time. There wasn't a lot of major pushes. We weren't pushing a Mosul or rocket or anything like that. But from a strategic standpoint, now I'm working at a 1-star command that's underneath I think at the time it was a 3-star command at a Combined Joint Task Force, OIR, which is Operation Inherent Resolve. So now I'm working at those higher levels, being able to see operations at a higher level. So for conventional sake, we would say it was a core mission with a Special Operations Joint Task Force underneath it. If that makes sense. So,
wow.
So definitely get to see the bigger picture.
Yep.
Yes.
Got to travel around the theater a lot.
More problems to solve.
Definitely a lot of problems to solve. And now you've got Wyoming's radar platoon that doesn't have any combat experience. So now I can help facilitate them getting up to speed faster.
That's amazing.
Going back to that, looking at a mission at a higher level, when you started at division level, you said. So how that helped later in your career, like at that point, you're looking at a 1-star level, you're looking at a mission from like the bigger picture and above. Like some of those warfighters, like it's funny, like I came here to the guard, I went straight to the MECPOT. The MECPOT goes straight to the first ID division. So we go straight with a 2-star general. So we go to those warfighters and we augment their division. And then me as a PAO, I got to sit next to all these sections, and based on my job, I go and jump around. So how that helped you on your, like, from the beginning, starting with working with a division to your like 2020 deployment?
I think it's a big step forward. So a lot of Other warrant officers may not have had that experience. They might have been a 13 Bravo their entire career, where they're just literally pulling a string, and then working their way up, obviously, into like a section chief or whatever. But they didn't have that familiarity of how the maneuver works, how division operations work, how joint operations work. And I think that's one thing as a DOD we don't do very well of, is that we don't talk to other joint services in training as often as we probably should.
Okay.
In my opinion, all operations are going to be joint, and most are going to be combined coalition. So we're going to have other nations there, just like we did in OIR. I think had 70-some countries involved.
Wow.
You could probably look it up. I don't remember the exact
Sure.
number, but some countries were like one representative, and maybe they were out helping train the Iraqis or whatever their mission set was. But there was a lot of nations there, and that's what the tagline was many nations, one fight. And so you've got this bigger picture that we just don't often get in training. And so having that higher level experience previous, you kind of catch up a lot faster.
Yeah.
That's great.
And did your plan work out? So deploy, Olympics, come back, mountains. When you came back, what was next?
So it was 2020. I was supposed to go to Japan, and that obviously got cut.
Yeah.
Didn't get to go see the Olympics. Didn't get to go up in the mountains, which kind of sucks. But.
Right. I thought that was going to be your answer.
Yep.
So what was the plan then? The whole world's kind of at standstill. What are you doing?
So I think I just took a couple months off. I just chilled.
Yep.
Didn't do much again. I had a lot of terminal leave. I had so much that I had to roll like 20-some days, because it went beyond the 400-day period of orders.
Wow.
So I had a lot of leave. I just kind of hung out for a little bit, and that's when I started to rebuild the online business.
I wanted to get back to that. Okay,
Yep.
so the brick and mortar was still there during all this time, but it kind of had now transitioned to online.
So 2015 is actually when I transitioned to another guy in town. He had, I think it's like I Love Kickboxing franchise or something.
Okay.
So I gave him my boot camp franchise, the brick and mortar.
Okay.
So I no longer had a location I had to worry about. And I was mainly kind of working a little bit on and off on the online side, just kind of technology wasn't great back then. So I played with some apps. They were okay. And then during the deployments, mostly it just kind of went away because like in Syria, I had no internet connection whatsoever. But coming back, I kind of like, hey, let me try this again, see what I can do. I also had learned a lot of performance stuff. So like, with my previous clientele, it's mostly fat loss and weight loss and things like that. Now I was looking at the performance side again. So kind of going full circle back to when I exited active duty, like there's not a good structure for performance for tactical careers. So in 2001, I had actually created Red, White, and Blue Fitness. Most people have probably heard of RWB. That is not me. That's a different organization. But I had Red, White, and Blue Fitness way back in 2001, and I just wrote articles. Like wasn't really doing anything with anybody, but I'd have firefighter captains reach out. They're like, hey man, like, can you help me with some of this? Because of the failures I had in that Austin Fire Department test, I started to develop some of that stuff. So jumping back forward to 2020, I started to reinvigorate some of the performance stuff.
Okay. And how is that journey? How much of that came from what experiences, I guess to rephrase, what experiences from walking the non-commissioned officer, multiple deployments, multiple MOSs, and deployments, doing your job as a warrant? What did you see that was failure points that you wanted to address?
I think like I said before, I think you'll figure out your skill set within about 6 weeks. It's that the 2017 deployment really exposed that general health is what's going to get you to that 6 weeks. It's not just having, this hardcore fitness regime. Like you have got to have a baseline of health. If you are smoking a pack a day, if you're drinking alcohol every night, if you're doing all these things that are slowing your system down, you can get away with it in your 20s. You can still get away with it in your 30s.
Sure.
But if you try to do it in your 30s, it's going to catch up to you in your 40s.
Yep, and this is where I really wanted to pick your brain. I know talking with you offline, I know and I see it, and it's funny when you came in this morning and I was like, hey, do you want a cup of coffee? I made a pot of coffee, Chief, and you were like, nope, no caffeine. Talk to me more about the fitness. Talk to me about where did it progress since when you started. Started redoing what you were doing online. How has it progressed? What have you seen, and where is it going now?
So, like I said, performance is kind of where I went into. So, what stimulated this is I started playing floor hockey again. So, when I was a kid, grew up in Minnesota, everybody plays hockey. Generally played on ice, but you'll play street ball, you'll play roller hockey, every type of hockey you're going to play.
Okay.
So, I started playing with another warrant officer. We started playing floor hockey, which is basically the same thing. You're just sprinting the entire time, and there's a ball instead of a puck.
Okay.
Generally on a basketball-sized court. So preferably with sport court because it's a little bit easier on the joints. So I started looking back in performance because I was like, I can pass PT tests. I can do all this other physical stuff. You know, I was working, between that 2010, 2015 timeframe when I had the gym, I was hiking, 6 to 10 hours a week. So like decent amounts of fitness in general.
Yep.
But when it came to specific skills, I'm like, I was always fast as a kid. I came in first in every race in elementary school. Like I was always fast. I did hurdles, etc. And I want to, and it's been a while since I played sports, which I think if you're young, do not give up your sports. It's the one thing that'll keep you young is being able to keep that tissue, able to handle that.
Okay.
We can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyways, I started playing street hockey and I'm like, I'm not making the change of direction as fast as I want because I'm always fast, but I'm not being able to change direction as fast as I want to.
Yep.
And there's portions to that aren't just physical. You have to have the cognitive recognition of what's happening in the play, predict where the ball is going to go or where the play is going to go to get ahead of the curve and then make your body do something. So in the tactical space, we talk about the OODA loop, which is observe, orient, decide, act, right? Same concept when it comes to sports, and so I started digging into performance. And there's a model, and I like frameworks and models because it's easy to kind of explain to people, called the 4 coactive model.
Okay.
That model stipulates that you have a physical realm, which is all your things physical, your strength training in the gym, your being able to output a sprint, but not applied to the sport yet. You then have your psychological domain, which is not just, and I think there's 2 separate splits here that we have to distinguish is that there's mental health and then there's sports psychology. And right now, the emphasis is on mental health, and I don't think we talk ever about sports psychology at all. And we can go down that rabbit hole. Your 3rd coactive is your technical skills. So now that you're able to sprint, I need you to be able to sprint in this direction and change this direction, or I need you to be able to get your stick on the ball in this way. Then you have your tactical skills. This is what in hockey they call game IQ. So game IQ is being able to read the entire thing and know where the play is going. And this is kind of like the ultimate, peak of performance is being able to see what's going to happen and get to it before it happens. Good example is Usain Bolt, fastest man in the world. When he first started playing soccer, he was getting beat to the ball almost every time. He's the fastest man in the world. So he's definitely faster than all the soccer players, but he did not have the game IQ yet.
Correct.
To be able to exploit that speed. So that's where technical skills, being able to change it from a straight line sprint into multi-direction, and then being able to do the tactical application of like, I know where this play is going to go, and I've seen it hundreds of thousands of times. So the reason why we always say that multi-sport athletes tend to do better in Olympics is because they've seen the body in different positions in different sports more than anybody else.
Okay.
So if you stay in just football your entire life, you're missing the exposure of what soccer gives, of what water polo gives, because the human body only moves so many different ways. But if you stick with one sport, you're only going to see that specific skill set of the human body movement. If you get multiple sports, now you can combine those pictures in your brain and you know what's going to happen. It's not that you're predictive, it's just that you've seen this so many times, you know what the most likely outcome is.
Yeah. As you're going through this and you're establishing this, are you researching within the military, within the Colorado National Guard, and you're reaching out? You're having fire departments reach out. How much of this are you seeing real world day to day in the National Guard?
So I'll kind of back up the whole timeline. Is that throughout this period from that not so good fire test, the CPAT, on, I'd pretty much been studying on and off performance and like, hey, some stuff's not there. So there's a guy named Rob Orr out of Australia.
Okay.
During that 2010 to 2015 timeframe, one things I was looking at was he's an Aussie military. I don't know what his exact title is, but basically he's like their science nerd when it comes to performance.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a ton of articles and whatnot on rucking. And the ruck, he's formulated a calculation based off VO2 max, the actual terrain you're on, the speed you're going, and he can actually calculate how much output you're going to have, which will then tie into how much logistics you need for food and water.
Yep. Okay.
So this is kind of one of the theories we started looking at in 2010 timeframe with the infantry.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, how do we start looking at the logistics requirements based off the speed we're going, the load we're carrying, the terrain we're going over? A lot of times it's just like, oh, you're supposed to be able to ruck at 4 miles an hour.
Right.
Until you get Colorado mountains or South Korean mountains. We have a lot of exercise where everybody's like, oh, you'll go 4 miles an hour. Like, no, you won't. You might get a kilometer an hour, and you're fighting along the way.
Yep.
So that's going to slow you down. You're wearing kit,
Yep.
which has got mobility limitations, etc. So I've kind of been looking at a lot of that stuff throughout the years. I don't know if that really answered
No, it
what
did.
you look for.
So as we continue to talk about this, COVID is still happening, right? You're still doing your personal civilian work through fitness and nutrition and sports science. And what was next? Did you where you work currently right now, is that where you started? Did you jump into working full-time in the National Guard at that point?
Technician. So while I was doing this online thing, just kind of working, it was more a hobby. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day,
Sure.
it's more of a hobby. But I got a technician job up at G3. So I started working as a technician, and then I transitioned into a budget analyst position there as a Title V.
Okay.
And then, what was this, 2.5 years ago? I came HR. So position opened up at the battalion, and I took the boarded for it and was awarded the position down at the battalion.
For future warrants, just to break it down as simple as possible, how easy was it? World geopolitical, environmental things happening. COVID, that's gone. Hopefully, never comes back. But when you had transferred to the technician, right, one of the jobs that we talked about, you are now a state employee, correct? You work for the state of Colorado.
It was federal.
Federal technician.
Yep,
okay.
federal technician.
How easy was that for you to apply to that job, wanting to continue working full-time for the National Guard as a warrant?
Yeah, I think just by being a warrant, everybody knows you already have some level of technical expertise. You still got a board for it, interview, etc., just like anything else.
Okay.
But it does help you get a leg up when the interviewee or interviewer knows that you have some technical skill sets, most likely.
Okay.
You're also getting referrals because now, as you work at a warrant, you start working at higher levels. People get to know you more. So now your name's around there and things like that. So as your name starts to get out there, it helps if you have a good reputation, which hopefully you do. And so I think that's really what it comes down to is like it's not that you would be disadvantaged as an E5, but you're not going to have that exposure to other people within the organization.
And how long were you federal technician?
2 or 3 years, I think.
Okay. Completely separate line of work from everything you had done
It was.
in the past? Learning curve, steep?
The mobilization office is where I started.
Okay.
So it was a lot of like mobilizing units. So I was familiar with some of it, but the systems as far as like plugging into the websites and like all the specific systems you have to have access to and understand all the little intricacies, like the mobilization field they just do things different. But you're dealing a lot with NGB now. So now you're dealing with national level assets. You're also dealing with new equipment fieldings and new equipment trainings. So you're getting units, new equipment. That's a part of the mobilization office in the G3.
And then when was the switch from a technician to AGR?
That was about 1.5 years ago.
Okay. And what was the switch? Why did that happen?
Position opened up. The gentleman that was in the position had been in that battalion for probably 10 or 15 years. He'd been there for a while. And he was originally looking to switch warrant career fields and or get out in the civilian world. And so that position opened up.
Yeah.
And
Well, good. I'm glad, it's Officer Rivera, like you were saying, you got to open the door.
Yeah.
And you have chosen, Chief, to open almost probably any door that you can think
Yeah.
of. We're starting to really narrow down the things that you haven't done, starting from, I'm assuming you came in as a PV1 private, from a private active duty out of Fort Hood 13 Fox, to now AGR, Chief Warrant Officer 3, title and position for me, Chief.
131 Alpha, Field Artillery Targeting Technician.
Okay. And this was all because of you took these steps to get where you are today. And going back, you're still doing the sports science. Where has that progressed to as far as like a hobby, in COVID and height and coming over to the technician side? Is it still a hobby now?
It is.
I want to get down the rabbit hole here, because I know that you are very versed, and the soldiers and incoming soldiers into our organization need to understand what, in your opinion, what to do physically, what not to do, how they can achieve these goals physically, mentally, and psychology correctly.
Okay. I think, again, I like frameworks. So if we think of the three major aspects that we have to be experts in is nutrition, training, and what precision nutrition calls deep health, which is basically all other things. It's your environment, it's your social networks, it's how you sleep, your stress. All these other things we put into deep health.
Okay.
That's how I split it off. They have it all underneath one. They have physical and they have nutrition underneath that. And they call it deep health. I take nutrition and training and I separate those out because they're so big. If you have a body composition objective, you're going to prioritize nutrition and then training,
Okay.
and then deep health.
Okay.
If you have a health objective, you're going to prioritize deep health and then nutrition and then training. If you have a performance objective, you are going to prioritize training, and then you can mix and match, but most likely nutrition because you need to fuel your performance, and then your deep health.
And this leads to, so coming from active duty and when you were doing tryouts for fire down in Texas, when you're watching, right, in the National Guard, in the Colorado National Guard, we have gyms located throughout the state at armories you'll have access to. You'll have leaders and NCOs and officers that can help guide you. And we have discounts for gyms and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, in the National Guard is your responsibility and user as a soldier. We are not showing up or calling you or making you go to a formation at 4:30 in the morning to get your daily physical fitness in. And so what would your message be from the framework that you've laid out for a new soldier coming into the National Guard? What should they be focusing on? Because their original thought is going to be the AFT now. I need to do good at the AFT and I need to pass that or I'm going to get in trouble.
Sure.
So what does that look like breaking down at the lowest level for that new private coming in that was you know, many years ago?
So I think most of those soldiers are probably going to be younger. So I would go down the performance track. I would focus on your training, then your nutrition, and then your deep health. As you get older, that may shift. So for guys like me that are in our 40s, we tend to focus a little bit more on the deep health and the training and the nutrition all kind of as equals. So for these younger soldiers, really find out what you like to train on, because consistency is going to be your number one asset.
Okay.
If you are consistent and you can show up, you can change the training anytime you want. But if you're not showing up, you are not getting any results. So the goal is to find things you enjoy, and that may take some time. You may have to try a variety of things.
Sure.
There's also certain exercise methods that may make you feel good and think they are productive, and they may or may not be for your specific biomarkers and DNA and all sorts of other deep-rooted things. But first, you just have to find what you enjoy. Get consistent with it. You can get better at what you do later on if you need to. And you can always focus on the AFT events, which are fairly simple. I wouldn't do them every day.
Yep.
I would probably do, one or two as a focus, and then still get other things in.
Okay. And I love how you talked about stay involved in something that you love. And if you like sports, you like team activities, you like individual sports, continue that. I'm sure that's not going to hinder you. And in the Guard, right, if you go back and look at our other podcasts, we have the Olympic level biathlon team, and they will take anybody as a tryout, and we will give you point of contacts, and you can reach out and talk to your recruiter about joining our biathlon team. We have our marksmanship team that is endurance as well as shooting. We have our running and hiking club. We have our alpinist group and team and climbing. So I like that you covered that for our junior soldiers. What about our more experienced soldiers, such as yourself? What should our leaders be doing or keeping in mind for drill weekend PT activities, advice for their soldiers, for the people that have gone to master fitness trainer or whatever, and they're in charge? Maybe it's that E6, maybe it's that 01, 02 that's in charge of the PT formation. What should they be doing for the older soldiers?
Sure. I think, again, the biggest thing is consistency. Try to find things that your soldiers enjoy. If that's mountain biking, let them mountain bike. If it's hiking, let them hike. If it's lifting weights, let them lift weights. As a performance outcome, you will need to go into other things. And that is the thing about performance, is that you will have to delve into other things. If you're just focused on health, there's certain training aspects to health. If you're just focused on body composition, there's certain things that you'll have to hit in training for body composition. But for performance, you're going to have to hit some of those AFT events, mostly from a skill standpoint. You'll naturally get better as the neural pathways get better. So the more often you do it, the more you will get better at that skill set, to include running. So I've never been a huge runner. I actually currently have a torn ACL, but I'm able to do it because I rebuilt my running from the ground up to not have pain when I run. I had to start off with running in snow, running on sand, running on grass. So you can do these things. You just have to be a little bit more mature. So as professionals, we need to take training professionally, and we need to look at other options that are out there. Again, consistency is probably number one. If most of us are beat up that are older, but we may not be broken yet. If we are broken, we need to make sure that we're finding good providers.
Sure.
And going down the route that's going to get us healthy so we can do things to be consistent, which will then lead to results. Now for the leaders, as far as recommending, so MFTs, for example, whether it's a lieutenant or a mid to junior NCO. My recommendation for them is that the school is probably going to teach you the X's and O's. Here's how you do an Excel sheet. Here's how you actually apply it. You have to learn, how do I get this individual to be able to execute? So again, it comes down to, like, how do you get them consistent? Because you can give them all the X's and O's.
Sure.
If they're putting in 50% effort, you're not going to know on a lift. They can pretend it's heavy. If they don't enjoy it, they may or may not tell you. If they are having nutrition issues at home, like, what is their environment at home? Do you know how to coach individuals is really what it comes down to. So as that unit leader, whether you're certified or not certified, you are a leader. You can still lead your soldiers into healthier habits without being qualified by the Army or qualified by the DOD or even qualified by civilian certifications. Try not to go down fads. Try to meet them where they are. If somebody wants to try carnivore, you don't need to badmouth it if you don't believe in it. Just say, cool, let's give it a shot for 2 weeks, see what happens. Look at the biometrics. If you feel good, that's on you, man. So a lot of it is, how do you coach an individual? How do you coach the human? And not just, here's 3 sets of 12 on, trap bar deadlift. I want you to do the plank for 90 seconds. That stuff is easy. And especially now with AI coming out, all that stuff is going to become very generic, and there's not going to be as much innovation.
Sure.
So it's up to us a lot of times. Like, I try to test a lot of things, like, hey, let's see if this works. Because when you have that broad base of experiences, you can then say, well, this came to this conclusion, I can come to this conclusion, and you can start adding some of that stuff in. So as AI gets out there, I think the X's and O's are going to be much less important, so much as me and you having a conversation.
Yeah, that's a deep rabbit hole too, is how much that will affect. What's the next, before we come back to that a little bit, what's the next, so AGR now, what's the next path and plan for you? We've talked about where you came from, the amazing things that you've done, and what are the amazing things that you are going to do, sir? What's the next? If you could map it out and have it your way, or you could predict it, you've opened a lot of doors. Is there what are the next doors that you want to open, that you want to explore? What are some things in the Guard that you expect are going to happen, or you want to happen?
So I'll kind of frame it like this. I think the first third of someone's career is you're learning and you're progressing and you're figuring out what works for you. You're getting intense. Once you get to that middle third, you've got to learn how to balance that intensity with longevity. And now for me, I'm on that back half where I should be backing off a little bit on the intensity and starting to prepare for transition.
Okay.
So honestly, at this point, like I am at the last, say, 5 to 7 years. So it doesn't sound like it's that much when you look at a 20-year career, but you have to start planning ahead of time.
Absolutely.
So I'm starting to plan that transition. That's part of, working with this human performance thing. This will give me, whether it's just a hobby or it ends up being a full-time career, business, etc. I have skill sets. So the big thing I try to do on the backside is I try to stack the skill sets as much as I can before that transition, so I have the most opportunities available.
That's good. What's something that you wanted to talk about? We talked about before the podcast started what we were going to discuss, and it led us down a lot of different paths. What's something that you either expected to come on that you wanted to talk about, or you want to address yourself, sir?
I think we've addressed quite a bit of it. So I would flip that back on both of you, because I don't know if your questions got answered. Is there something that you want to go deeper on in one of these rabbit holes?
I think not. I think you cover. It's funny, like I commented you a while back about, I think it was sports and circuits, and you were talking about it, and then you kind of explained to me, it's like, no, it's like it needs to be like circuits without any purpose. They're useless. It's like you were talking about soccer and how we apply circuits on that. But you're like, yeah, you're applying it towards a sport, and that was like something about like on your, I think it was your personal Instagram. But I think overall we cover a lot. We went all over your career, long career. It's been what, like 27 years, almost 30 years.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thanks.
So that's my goal. My goal is I'll stay in until they kick me out.
Right.
MRD.
I know, and I know you've seen it, and everybody in the Guard here, people find these niches and these groups, right? And we have so many in the Colorado National Guard, and find your home, and your home may change, and it should change, and we talked about that. In recruiting and retention battalion alone, I can think of on two hands soldiers that are so interested. And in the marksmanship community, we go down the psychological side of sports. Shout out Lanny Basham in his book with Winning in Mind, and the percentage that we don't train mentally, or even, But for these soldiers and for these incoming new soldiers, where how can they reach out to you through your program? Where can they go to see this information if they want to be more involved?
So Instagram, they can go to Red, White, and Blue Fitness is my handle there.
Very good.
Facebook is Nathan Cragg, Cragg, should be spelled right there. Do you want to talk about marksmanship, combatives, et cetera, and how that applies to the culture?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll let you take it off.
So I guess we could start with in 2004, as we're doing the pre-mob for the first Iraq deployment. I went through combatives level 1 and level 2 because another guy broke his toe. Back then, combatives was extremely aggressive. People were breaking bones and joints all the time. They would try to chase people out on the punch drill. Like if you just couldn't hack it, you were out.
Right.
But the intent of the combatives program was one portion physical training. So you should be able to do combatives with your physical training. The other portion was to have a competition to where you could bring it out at any point. So a company commander might, on Friday afternoon, maybe Friday lunchtime before everybody cuts out for lunch, He says, first platoon, platoon leader, second platoon, second squad leader, fight. And you have to get up there and perform. There's no shirking. There's no hiding. Either you have this skill to win or you don't. And hopefully they're evenly matched. But whichever team won, that platoon would go home early. So that was the other intent of the combatives program, was to stimulate a culture of competition, which would then stimulate the appropriate skill sets. Didn't necessarily have to be the direct skill sets, but they would be skill sets for a combative application.
Yep. When I came Alpha Company First 157, it was routine at the end of drill weekend that there would be combatives. And you exactly like you said, you were expected to perform on demand. And on the marksmanship side, we talk about that as well. It's performance on demand. Yeah, please continue.
So if we look at shooting or any of these really, if we look at the marksmanship program as a whole, if we take a picture of an athlete and we look at those 4 coactives, how much of that shooting marksmanship program is physical? How much of it is psychological? How much of it is the technical skills? And how much is the tactical gamesmanship and or combative application? So we can start to look through that lens of the 4 coactive model and figure out ratios, and then you match your training to match those ratios. So if you're like, say, 20% is physical, then you can train 20% of your time in the physical. If your technical skills are 80% or 70%, you should be training a vast majority of that time that you have available throughout the week.
Agreed.
On those skill sets. With the caveat is that for long-term health and long-term performance, you should probably have some level of physical training throughout the week.
Sure. I would agree with that. And anything you could drop XYZ and, and especially in this profession of arms, regardless of MOS or background or future pipeline goals, that needs to be implemented. On the mental side, I think there's a break in communication sometimes on what soldiers are expected to be able to perform as far as qualification standards. And if we're talking about marksmanship, the IWQ, the individual weapons qualification, in the profession of arms for marksmanship, and I think it also goes into combatives as well, soldiers and future soldiers listening, you are a liability if you cannot pass the bare minimum individual weapons qualification or your standards that you are held to at an annual level. That is baseline. The performance that you can achieve through fitness and through practice and through the adaptation and learning model is exponential. And we have programs through the marksmanship program at the National Guard to go above the standards that the Army has set. If you're not aware, right, in marksmanship, on your dress uniform, and you can Google Army Marksmanship Awards, you're going to see 3 unless you start really searching, and you're going to see marksman, sharpshooter, and expert. And even on the expert level, you are hitting a man-sized target out to 300. Well, the performance of the new weapon systems coming down, the current weapon systems, can outperform, and a soldier should be able to outperform that standard that's given by the Army. Have you heard of what's happening with the combatives program? Because I took Modern Army Combatives 1 in basic training, and since then, we did combatives in the infantry, and I've heard it's gone away. Is there anything that you've heard, Chief? Is it coming back? What, as far as combatives? I
think it's kind of at a steady state. It still exists.
Okay.
There are posts that still sponsor competitions. So there still is competitions all the way up to the Army level.
Okay, good.
What happened with the program, from what I've seen, is that a lot of units would send the young former wrestler or martial arts guy or MMA enthusiast, and he was, say a specialist, very aggressive. He would go get certified, come back to the unit, and his entire intent was just to beat everybody up.
Sure.
So soldiers were not learning. Commanders are like, well, everybody's getting injured. This is a bad program. So from the grassroots, it just never got a good foothold because of the selection criteria for instructors. At least that's been my interpretation from what I've seen. There's been some good level 3, level 4 instructors, but when you get that junior level where you send the very aggressive young guy who's got a lot of testosterone, wants to prove everybody wrong, etc., and now he's got a little bit more skill than everybody else, he can beat up on everybody, and that kind of made the program just like the SDM, the Squad Designated Marksman.
Yep. It's still alive.
When there's not an MTO position associated, that's the other problem, is that you don't have just the culture, but you also have an MTO position. Without that MTO designation, those programs tend to die off.
So what do we do, Chief?
I think we have to advocate. One, you have to start at the grassroots and advocate at your level. But two, we need to make some of these positions that we actually take serious and we want to be professionals at, they probably got to be in an MTO position. So just like Sniper is an ASI.
Correct.
Is a B4, if I remember right.
Yeah, Bravo 4.
Bravo 4. But it is MTO'd to that infantry battalion. You will have a Bravo 4 versus a master fitness trainer, a squad designated marksman, a combatives instructor. They have an ASI, but there's nothing in the MTO that says you must have this. So that's a piece at the higher level. At our level, we need to advocate for these programs. We need to advocate for competition, and whether that competition is something very minor. Like, for example, in 3 of the 157 artillery, we had a year where you could run 157 miles as logged through, I think it was like the Nike Club app or something.
Okay.
And you got a nice little medal and everything at the end if you accomplish 157 miles within a year. So competition, but it wasn't like against necessarily anybody.
Sure.
It was more against yourself. So you could start with these small things and start building up, recommending, hey, if you haven't gone to a tag match, you should go to one. I continue to go because I get to see people from throughout the state, throughout the organization, and interact with those individuals. It's very rare that most of these soldiers get to interact with the warrant officer, especially at more of a peer-to-peer level.
Agreed.
Versus, like, oh, yes, sir, da-da-da. Like, we want to be able to interact at more of a peer-to-peer level when possible.
And at a joint level.
Level.
Army and Air, from different MACOMs, possibly all MACOMs throughout the state. Yeah, I could talk about this forever. I agree with you, and I know we preach it at the tag match. For you junior soldiers and for you future soldiers, the programs and clubs and opportunities will die and they will go away due to funding or due to mission mindsets moving forward, technology. You look at the history of for example, one of them, the Norwegian Foot March, right? That is not a mandated thing by any means in the National Guard as far as I'm tracking, but the following that it has, and from military and civilian, and these soldiers taking it upon themselves to go earn something that can be earned through training and repetition and building that culture, and it's going to stay alive, and I hope it does stay alive. Marksmanship program, reach out. State marksmanship coordinator here in Colorado is Sergeant First Class John Grunther, and a wealth of knowledge. I'm his assistant. Reach out to me if you have any questions at all. Health and fitness, right? And it's the biathlon team, and if we don't, I agree with you. I think that as the junior soldiers, if you don't advocate on your command climate surveys, and if you don't tell your platoon sergeant or your platoon leader that you want to volunteer for overseas training opportunities or overseas deployments, sometimes your guard experience can seem quite dull. And I don't want that. And I know you don't want that. And I know our senior leadership doesn't want that. And you as the soldier don't want that. I think it can be scary. As a junior soldier, you're coming to this organization and you see videos from public affairs, and you see individuals such as yourself on your private Instagram account posting these amazing things and these amazing tours and opportunities. What should they do? What should I guess twofold question to go back to what we were talking about. What should that junior soldier do to be successful and reach out and ensure that these programs still live? And then from your position, what should our senior leaders do to ensure that these programs continue?
Sure. I think part of it, is at the base root. You might have to start an insurgency for whatever your preferred biased hobby, competition, et cetera, is at that grassroots. So throughout my career, when it comes to physical fitness, like a lot of the Army didn't take it very serious. It was like, you pass the PT test, you're good.
Yep.
But once Afghanistan kicked off, we found out that we were not as good as we thought we were. Those lessons weren't always applied in Iraq, considering that I think it's 7% or something of the forces in Iraq actually went outside the wire and did things that were physically demanding. And most of those, like us, we were in vehicles almost the entire time. But mentally, you had to be on. Mm-hmm. So you had to be mentally sharp. So there's other aspects to fitness that aren't just physically demanding. So being able to have that base. But getting back to it is that you have to start maybe a fitness insurgency. Like, hey, I'm going to start a chat group where everybody posts their workouts. Mm-hmm. Again, getting something where it's exciting to see what everybody else is doing, that you're not alone, et cetera. You're starting this small community that maybe it's just you and your squad. Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So especially in the Guard, when we're geographically distributed, you've got to have something that says, I'm here along with you guys. We're all suffering through whatever the training is at that moment. You've probably seen in our chat group with guys talking about the max heart rate runs.
Yep.
Like everybody knows, like they're awful, but like you have that common ground of like everybody's been through this, they've been through it, they've done it. It sucks, but it's super effective.
Mm-hmm. And we're already on that team. I think I want to reemphasize that point in my mind that you're talking. Mm-hmm. You junior soldiers and you incoming soldiers in the organization and senior leaders, we all signed up for this, and the Guard's small. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you can speak for that coming from active duty and the multiple joint deployments that you've been on. Yep. For Guard and active duty. I think we're might get this wrong, about 2,900, just shy of maybe about 3,000 soldiers in the Colorado National Guard. I think the number sounds close.
I think it's more, 35.
Have we grown?
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, we signed up to wear this uniform and do these things and do the things that we have seen on the Instagram and on social media and on TV and heard about. And you already have that team. You're on that team and you may not know it. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. I think those junior soldiers need to get together productively, mm-hmm. And find those outlets for themselves. And we don't care what that is. And we're not advocating for one program over another. But be the voice if enough of you speak up, mm-hmm. And you want something, you want a school, you want a program to continue, you want training in a specific thing, it is the job of the leaders above you to train you if requested, productively, of course, and using the correct chains. But what about the senior leaders, Chief?
So I'll actually start with NCOs. Having been an NCO, mm-hmm. NCOs tend to come off a little aggressive when they were wanting something. So if they want to do a combatives program, they're like, sir, we must do this. And they're very adamant and very black and white. And that tends not to get the response they're looking for.
Yeah.
So kind of goes
guilty of it.
It goes back to, how do you coach an individual? How do you talk to an individual? So how do we talk to senior leaders in a way that they can respond to, in a way that they will absorb the information and say, yes, that's probably a good idea, but give me the how. How are we going to do this correctly? How are we going to do this to satisfy my fears of maybe injury, or maybe this isn't going to look good, or whatever it happens to be? You have to have those solutions kind of in mind. You're not going to have all of them, but you need to be able to have the conversation with that senior leader, mm-hmm. and say, hey, I want to do this. What do you see as an issue, and how can I mitigate that? Have a conversation. You don't have to have all the answers right away. When I first turned an E5, the next day, they're like, how come you didn't come to me with 3 solutions? I'm like, because you never told me to. Like, this is the first time I've been an NCO. Like, I don't know.
Right.
They expect you to all of a sudden know as soon as you turn E5. Like, that's not, mm-hmm. So have a conversation with your leadership. And I think for the senior leaders, it's got to be, regardless of what your soldiers want, again, meet them where they're at. And if you can provide it, awesome. If you can't because of funding or resources, etc., what can you do? end that line. If you can't provide enough ammunition for everybody to go to the tag marksmanship, match, how do we provide other training resources? Or maybe it's just a slimmed down tag match, or it's something less, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And we're still building that momentum instead of just letting it die.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's funny. I was looking at the news. It was either last night. I'm not sure if this is true, but I'm hearing change of name officially from Department of Defense to Department of War.
Again? What?
Yeah. So
No, I haven't heard anything.
might have to cut this out after we get off. But I'm seeing a name change to Department of War instead of Department of Defense. And yeah, pull it up. Let's do some research here. Let's see if it's breaking news in the DoD, maybe possibly becoming the DOW. Type in Department of Defense name change. Search Google News, because if it's true, in the Colorado National Guard, our job, for those that do know and are listening, but this is for those that don't, right?
It's true.
Yeah, so here we go, and you can see White House advances plan for Department of War as our Commander-in-Chief looks to restore historical military. What does it say? Military title.
Mm-hmm.
For those,
Because in the past it used to be Department of War, and then they changed it to Department of Defense.
Right.
Because we don't do war, we do defense.
So
it
and here's my 2 cents for.
it's funny, like, because I do public affairs, and
Yeah.
everything is about perception.
Yes,
Mhm.
and this is a big perception change. In the Colorado Army National Guard, parents and students and college students and any individual of military age that meets the requirements after you talk to a recruiter, you should know by the time that you are going up to MEPS and doing your testing, and whether you're looking to become a warrant officer or a traditional officer, a non-commissioned officer, you want to be an infantryman or public affairs, it doesn't matter. In the state of Colorado, our main mission is the state of Colorado, right? We are here to report to the governor as needed through our adjutant general to stand up for when the state needs us. Fires, floods, civil unrest, mountain rescue searches, blizzards, operations to ensure Coloradan safety here. However, that is one source of funding for the Colorado National Guard, is our state mission. Now, that's our primary mission. However, we also are federally funded for federal overseas peacekeeping missions abroad. And our guest here today, Chief, has been on many of those federal missions as well. And so we can't forget, and my message is to you, that may be joining, or to our leadership, or to a leader in any position in this organization. I heard a quote a long time ago, early on in my career with the infantry. Our job, no matter what it is to stop the beating heart completely from beating in any essence that wants to harm us. Whether that's at the state level or at the federal level, either funding, our job is to stop bad things from happening. And if that's a person, combatives, marksmanship, biathlon, all of these programs that we do are built, in essence, they're war-fighting skills. And we can't forget that we're a war-fighting organization. I may get in trouble for saying that, but I'm just going off of what the Department of War is stating. We are a war-fighting organization.
I don't think it's changed yet, so...
Well, by the time this comes out, maybe it'll be changed.
Everything is going so fast, so... It should... I don't know. This should come first.
Yeah.
It should... Yeah.
We'll send this up to the public affairs for our commander-in-chief. We'll see if they... we'll play this podcast first. But that's just my opinion. And I think going back to kind of, Chief, my mind wrapping around what you were saying, our soldiers and our new incoming soldiers need to be understanding themselves and focusing physically on what they know they need to work on and the goals that they have in mind, whether that's a goal, whatever specific goal is a school-specific goal or an MOS-specific goal or an event-oriented goal, and they need to take care of themselves mentally and physically And the second portion that you talked about, they need to ensure that their diets are correct and they're sleeping and they have relationships built. They're on a team that values and trusts them. I know that's a big, huge portion of our leaders above us is the person, the individual soldier. And then they need to practice. And I don't care if it's practicing to be, if you sign up to be public affairs, you need to, and with the advance of AI, like you were talking about earlier, do your own research and take your classes and use all your benefits given to you by the state of Colorado and the federal government as a National Guardsman, and go get additional public affairs training. If you're in the infantry, take your own combatives and bring that experience to your unit at the infantry level. If you're going in, do you want to touch base on where my mind is just racing off to? We need to we need to continue to be students of whatever profession that we are, because most of our soldiers are professionals on the civilian side as well. And if you're a police officer for Denver Police Department, you will be a better military police officer, and vice versa.
This is what we used to call martial arts. You train all of the aspects as part of the martial profession. You know, there's the physical component, there's the health component, there's the technical component, all the things we talk about with the 4 coactives. All of those get wrapped into the martial arts. It's not all kicks and punches and all that other stuff. You have the mindset. You have the technical skills. You have the tactical skills. Do I fight here or do I fight there?
Right.
Choosing your battles. All of those things get wrapped into what used to be called just martial arts, especially as we look at historical warrior tribes and societies, etc. And sometimes we focus on specific societies, but it's throughout the history, there's been numerous warrior societies that take all of these aspects and put them together.
I think we need to be better. In my mind, where the kind of the quote that I'm leaning towards after our discussion today is, we need to be better warriors in the garden. And whatever that garden is for you in your life, we don't care in the National Guard. We don't care. Build that beautiful garden, but don't forget that you are a warrior in that garden. And we cannot and will not, as leaders in this organization, become gardeners in a period of war.
Do you want to ask the last 2 questions?
Yes. I'm going down a rabbit hole. Well, Chief, it's been an honor and a pleasure.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
I'm really excited to see the remainder of the 4, 5, 6 years, hopefully more, that we have you. Lucky to have you in this organization. Your story is incredible. I see it. I know soldiers see it. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know when you came in, you were on meetings, and you have more meetings that follow. So thank you so much, sir.
100%.
We ask everybody that comes on a piece, 2 things to end the conversation, is a piece of advice or a quote that you want to pass off to our viewers and listeners that you've learned at some point in your career, and then challenge, who would you like to see come on the podcast?
So I'll go with number 2 first.
Okay.
I think it would be beneficial for Lieutenant Colonel Mercado, who is currently the G3, my previous battalion commander, to come on, because of the culture he has built at that battalion over the last, however long his tour was, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
2 or 3 years he was there. When I first got into the AGR position, me and him talked about personality leadership versus systems-based leadership. And so he's a very personality leader. So what we were trying to do is, how do we systemize his culture so that when he leaves, it's still there? And some of the things that he's been able to do in the interim has been something we call Lightning for Life. And so Lightning for Life is whether you spend 1 minute with 3rd of the 157 or you spend 30 years with 3rd of the 157, you are Lightning for Life. And so that is a program and thing that he has established, and there's a scroll and the whole 9 yards, and It's very formal, but this is a systemized structure of culture.
I like that.
That he was able to bring to the organization.
Lightning for Life. We can reach out. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chief.
And if you need help, I'm going to G3 later, so
thank you.
Talk to him.
Yeah, please.
As far as what to tell future soldiers, current soldiers, etc. You're going to have to find your own journey. As you can see, I've had lots of opportunities. You've had lots of opportunities. Other individuals have had lots of opportunities, but you need to find what your journey is and what you want to get out of this experience. The journey is going to be different for everyone. I like the quote that the man in the river are never the same when he crosses through it. Something, I think I got it wrong, but every time you cross that river, the river is different and the man is different. And it is the same with your career. Like, you come into a new position, it is not the same you walking into that same position. Whether it's a different position, same position, you're still in the organization, you're still crossing the river, but you need to take that opportunity to grow and develop along that journey, however long that is, whether it's a 4-year stint or whether it's full 25 years.
Yeah.
I like it a lot, Chief. Well, thank you again so much for your time and leadership. I'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, for those listening and watching, if you like the conversation, hit the notifications bell below. Like, comment, follow us on CO National Guard, CO National Guard, Instagram and Facebook. So that's it.
Great episode.
All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.